So without a doubt, Trapcode Particular is my favorite plugin of all time, and this tutorial is going to show you some of the different uses for Trapcode Particular. And if you don't have it for After Effects, it costs $400. You can get a free trial of it on redgiantsoftware.com. You can go to that website and download a free trial of it. Seriously, this is the greatest plugin of all time, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so we're going to start out with the basics here, just working on some simple elemental kind of effects, and then we're going to work our way up to some more sophisticated stuff here. So let's just get right to it. I'm going to make a new composition. I'll just call this Elements. I'm working at 640 by 360, 24 frames a second, and 10 seconds. Looks good. Okay, just so we have like something to, I don't want to be doing this stuff on black because you're not really gonna be able to get the effect of how it works. So I'm just gonna bring in this texture of a brick wall here, and you can bring whatever texture you want in. Just bring something in so we have something to work on. I'm gonna go ahead and make a new adjustment layer. Just put a curves filter on it and darken it. And I'm going to go up to my ellipse mask option here, double click on it to make a mask, hit MM to bring up the mask options and set it to subtract, make a little feather here. I'm also just going to bring down the levels of this brick wall here so it's not so intense. Okay, I'm also just going to add a light to this scene. My light has a little bit of color to it, so you can do whatever you want for your scene. Just letting you know. Looks good. We need to make that brick layer 3D. There we go. Okay, so first thing we need to do to get Particular working is create a new solid, and I'll call this Dust. And we're going to apply Trapcode Particular to it. And by default, Trapcode Particular starts out with these little circles shooting out from a central point. We don't want it shooting out from a central point. We want it shooting out from a box. So we're going to change our emitter type to box. And we need to make the size of the box bigger than the size of our frame here. So I'm just going to increase the emitter X size. And then I'm going to do it on the Y as well. There we go, that looks good there. So now our particles, rather than being emitted from a central point, they're being emitted just kind of in a uniform way across our comp. Okay, the next thing we'll do is, let's go to our particle settings here and twirl down. I'm going to increase the life of this to about 10 seconds. And this is going to make it so the particles don't pop in and out as much. And also to make sure they don't pop in and out as much, we're going to go to opacity over life here. And I need to make some room here. I'm going to click this option that's just a little bell curve here. And this is going to make it so our particles don't pop in and out, but they fade in and they fade out. So they don't have any of that popping going on there. Right now our particles they're all randomly just flying different directions, and they're doing so at a set velocity, but we can change that velocity here. I don't want them shooting out as fast, so maybe I'll put the velocity to like 25. And let's see that there. This might be a little bit slow. Maybe a tad slow. I'll put it to like 29. Now I don't want it to be blank at the start here because they're starting to fade in at 0. But what you can do is actually just take this whole layer right here and drag it over. And if you drag it over, that now at 0, now the screen is full of particles. So that's what we want there. Okay, let's just take a look at this. Let's see what to do next. Let's go ahead and these things are all flying out in random directions, but they're all flying in a perfect line. what we need to do to make it look kind of like dust is we need to add some physics to this. So we're going to go to physics and going to go to air. And if I turn on this checkbox right here that says visualize field, we'll get some lines here. And now if I twirl down turbulence field, and if I go to effect position and I scale this up, you'll notice that these lines start kind of deforming. And this, if I go ahead and do a RAM preview, this is like visualizing the turbulence field. So the way these lines are moving is kind of the way our particles will be moving. So this is starting to look a little bit more like dust right now. And I like where this is heading. We can turn off the visualize turbulence field for now. We might come back to that. Let's change the particle type from this sphere, because this doesn't look very much like dust, to something that's a little bit more organic looking. This cloudlet option right here looks a little bit better. It's way too big right now. Let's change the size. Let's drop it to like 2. And let's also drop our particles per second to maybe 70. And maybe 50. Now if I do a RAM preview, now we're getting a little bit closer to the look that we want. Yeah, we're getting there. I'm gonna bring the velocity down on these, maybe to 20. They're moving a little bit too fast for me. This is looking better. All right. Let's see what's next. Let's go ahead and change the color of these. I think I want this to be kind of dark. I want it to be darker than the background. So I'll make it kind of like a dark gray with a little bit of orange in it, maybe to match our background. And I'm going to hit F4 on this layer in my timeline and change the mode to something like multiply, maybe color burn. And we'll drop the opacity of it. We'll drop the opacity of the layer to like 50. Now this is probably going to be getting hard to see now, depending on how compressed this video is. But we're getting something that looks a little bit like dust here. My particles are still too big. I'll probably take it down to 1. If I take it down to 1, you're probably going to stop seeing this. But doing something like dust, you don't want the particles to be too big, otherwise it makes them look really fake. So I find that the smaller you can make them, the better. Rather than doing a dark dust, why don't I try doing something a little bit lighter? I'll bring up the color, change it to, we'll just put it to normal for now. And since we created a light in our scene, we have this light that we created. If I go to shading and I turn it on, it's actually going to be reacting to the light. So where our light's right in the center of our shot here, and anywhere I take the light, it's going to illuminate the dust particles. You can see them up here. It's going to illuminate them wherever they're close to the light. So this is a cool look because this way you can actually have your dust like go in and out of the light. So this looks pretty good here. Another thing you might want to do, and I sometimes do with something like dust, is I add just a slight bit of gravity to it. Maybe something like 2. And this just makes it so all of the dust particles are all kind of, they all kind of look like they're settling, you know? I've got a lot of dust going on right now. It kind of looks like there's a fire nearby and like these are ashes falling, which is kind of cool. I'd probably take down the amount of the particles if I wanted this to look like dust. But this is a good stopping point for the dust section here. So there's dust. I'm going to duplicate this layer, turn off the bottom one. I'm going to write rain, and we're going to work on a rain layer right now. So I'm going to go up to our particular layer and just hit reset. So now we're starting back where we were. Oh, I need to turn up the opacity of this layer again. Okay, so now we're going to try doing some rain here. So we'll kind of be going over some of the stuff we did before, but we'll be trying some new things. So I'm going to change it from point to box. I'm going to increase the emitter size so it's covering the whole screen here. And now I'm going to go ahead, and you can either move the Y value by using this slider here, or you can just grab this little circle with an X in it, and you can just drag it up. We want to be dragging this above our composition here because our rain is going to be falling from up here and into our scene here. Let's see, I'll take the velocity down to like 10 because the way we create this effect is not through the velocity, but it is through gravity. So I need to turn up a lot of gravity, so I'm going to do it to like 550 or something. So there we go. Now we have the motion of rain, even though it doesn't look right now, but we'll keep working on it. In order to sell the effect of rain, it really needs to have some blur on these things so it actually looks like streaks of rain. So if we go all the way down to the bottom and we go to rendering and we go to motion blur, and I'm not going to use the comp setting, I'm just going to go to on. And so there you go. So now we've got some streaks happening in the rain there. So now if we play this, it looks a little bit closer to like what we're going for. Let's go ahead and turn up the particle amount for this. Maybe like 500. All right. I think I want to increase the emitter size on the Z axis, and what this is going to do is it's going to make some of the rain be closer to us and some of the rain be farther away from us. So I'll put it up to something like maybe like 400. All right. Let's go ahead and decrease the size of these spheres because they are too big right now. Let's take it down to like 3. All right, we're getting close to something that we can work with. Let's go ahead and turn the shading on for this so it's using the light to illuminate. And I think in order to sell this effect, we really got to make this brick wall, we got to make it kind of a bluish grayish color because the orange color of the bricks is not helping sell this effect of the rain here. So I'm going to just increase some of the blue, take out some of the red. There we go. Now this is starting to look a little colder and rainier. Let's go back to our rain layer. Let's try some size randomness, and what this will do is this will make some of the drops bigger than others. Maybe we'll put this to like 40, maybe too much, maybe 30. Just adds a little bit of variation in the raindrops there. And we're getting close to something that looks good here. I'm gonna change the color and make this maybe a little bit bluish of a color, so it looks a little more like rain. Maybe I'll whoa there. Maybe I'll make a few more particles. Maybe I'll take it to like 800. There we go. I'd tweak it a little bit more, but this is pretty much the effect of rain there. You can make it kind of go to the side if you want, and the way that you do that, rather than having the rain fall straight down, you can kind of make it do an angle, is by increasing the wind. If I put the wind to like 175, now there's a problem right now. If I go ahead and do the render, you'll notice that the rain is moving to the side, but our streaks are perfectly vertical. And for some reason that happens when your motion blur is set to linear, but if I set it to subframe sample, now you can see all of our drops kind of got slanted there. But we need to increase the levels because you can actually see spaces between dots here, which does not look good. So let's increase that to like 15. And now if I do a render, now our rain is going to the side. There we go. And there's rain. Okay, let's go ahead and do some snow. Same kind of principles, but they all have you know, their own little details that makes them different. So I'll call this snow. All right, we're gonna do the same thing. Set it to a box. Increase the X size here. Drag it above our composition. because we need our snow falling into our scene here. We'll take the velocity down to like 10 again. We'll increase the gravity, but this time we only want to do it to like, let's try 16. And now I'm going to drag my timeline layer over to the left to actually get the snow so it's falling in. Oh, I got to increase the life of the particle. I'll put it to like 15. There we go. So now we got it falling slowly into our scene. Might actually still be a little bit fast. Take it down to like 12. All right. We got to do some... we're going to go back to the physics and to the air and to the turbulence field. And let's put it to like 50. And what I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to want to decrease the scale here a little bit. If I increase the scale number, it actually makes the movements sharper and more frequent. And if I decrease the scale, say put it to like 5, it's going to make it smoother, because I don't want the snow to be too like jittery as it's falling down. That looks about right there. I'm going to turn off visualize field. I want to increase the emitter size for this one again, just like I did for the rain. Maybe I'll do it to like 500. So that way just some are closer to the camera and will be falling a little bit faster, and the ones in the back will be falling a little bit slower. It just creates a little bit more variation, makes it more interesting looking. Let's decrease our size of these. These are like golf balls falling from the sky. Let's take it down to 3. I'm also going to want to do the opacity too. I think I'll make the max opacity like 80. And then I'll make the opacity randomness something like 50. Maybe more, maybe like 75. That looks about right there. Let's go ahead and play this. All right. It looks like it's still falling a little bit too quickly. I wouldn't know because I live in San Diego, so I don't see snow ever, but I dream about it, and in my dreams it falls slower. So let's try that right there. Okay, that looks pretty nice there. I could play around with trying having it affect more of the position, the turbulence field, but that might get a little too crazy. Let's find out. There we go. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. I think the snow's a little bit too intense still, but whatever. I'll go ahead and turn on the shading for this. This will make it look a little bit nicer in the scene. Yeah, that's basically about it. I might take it down, be a little bit smaller. Yeah, but I like how that looks. Looks, like I said, it looks like my dream snow. Yeah, so let's move on. All right, so the next thing we'll try out are some sparks and some fireworks here. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new solid in this composition I made, same size. Call it sparks. Go to particular. So creating a spark, basically all you have to do is make it so the emitter stops emitting particles right after it starts. I'm also going to increase the velocity. I'll make it to put it to like 500. Now if I zoom into my timeline here, I'm going to set a keyframe maybe at 1 frame, and I'll hit U on the layer to bring up my keyframe that I made. And maybe I'll go to 3, and then I'll set it to 0. And so what that will do is it's just we have particles being emitted, and then they and then it stops. So it's only emitting them for like the first frame or 2. That looks pretty good there. In order to make it look more like a spark, we're going to want to turn on the motion blur again for it. So we'll turn that on. And I think we'll put it to subframe sample, maybe like 15 levels. Now sparks usually are affected by gravity, so let's try turning it to like 200. And that looks pretty good there. These particles are lasting a really long time though. I think I want them to like disappear after maybe like a little over a second. Because sparks usually disappear pretty quickly after they come into existence. Yeah, and let's increase the particle amount at the very beginning, the first keyframe. Maybe I'll have some more particles. Maybe I'll put it like 300. All right. We're getting somewhere here. We're getting somewhere. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the opacity over life option here. And I'm gonna click on the bell curve here, but what I'm gonna do is you can draw anywhere in the in this box right here, and this will affect the opacity over life. So you can create your own crazy whatever you want kind of shape here. But I'm gonna click on that bell shape, and then I'm just gonna draw on this left side here, which is the start time of the particle, because I want the particle to come in at 100 opacity, but I want to kind of fade out near its death. Yeah, there we go. That's all right. Let's go ahead and do the life randomness here. So this way some of the sparks last longer than other ones. So let's put that to like 70 and just see what happens. This way they're all not, they're not ending at the same time, you know? Let's see here. If I wanted these to look more like sparks, I'd probably do something like put a glow layer on it, you know, and try to put some color into it. Maybe I'll go to AB colors here, and let's see what we can do here. Make that a darker color. I'll also put a little bit of color into the sparks here. Yeah, that's all right for now for a spark. I might take the size of these down a little bit, maybe like 3. There we go. That looks like a spark to me. There you go. So using this right here, let's try to make something like a firework. To make a firework, maybe we'll increase the particles per second a lot more, maybe to like 2,000. Now the difference between a spark and like a firework is that fireworks, when they explode, they start out really fast, the particles, but then they slow down and then they kind of come to a stop near the end of their life. So this is what we got to do here. And in order to make our particles slow down, to start fast and then slow down, we're going to go to, let's see here, where is it? Is it under air? Yeah, we're going to go under physics and then air, and then we're going to turn on some air resistance here. So if I turn it up to like 1, you'll notice that they start fast, but they kind of slow down near the end of their life. Let's try maybe just a little bit more to just kind of emphasize the... Oh shoot, let's go crazy. Let's go to 2. There we go. That looks like a firework right there. We could do a little bit more to this. We can, let's increase the life of the particle here. Let's make it like 2 seconds long, because I want to... Yeah, I like that there. Let me increase my render region here so we can see what happens. Ooh, yeah, I like that. That is what a firework should do right there. It should explode, and then the particles should kind of stop, and then they should kind of disappear as they fall. That looks cool. Now we can actually, you know how I showed you how you can draw on the opacity here? Well, that's what we're gonna do, because I want it to look like they're kind of twinkling as they as the particles disappear. So I'm just gonna draw some like little kind of twinkly kind of stuff here. And this is gonna be cool. This is gonna make it so they kind of shimmer. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh man, I am feeling patriotic now. Yeah, there's a firework right there. All right, let's move on. All right, so what I've got here is a mask, a vector mask that I copied from Illustrator and pasted into After Effects. It's just of a tree. And so you can either find one, a vector mask, or you can just draw one, just like create a new solid. Color doesn't matter, but basically you just need to draw some sort of ugly tree. There we go, that's a tree. So go ahead and just draw some sort of tree inside of After Effects. And once you've got that, we need to go ahead and pre-comp it. So I'm gonna hit Command-Shift-C to pre-comp it. And I'll just call this tree layer. And you wanna make sure that you're moving all attributes into the new composition. Click OK. All right, we'll create our particular layer, and we're gonna call this leaves, because we're gonna make some leaves grow on this tree here, which is gonna be pretty cool. So let's go ahead and add particular. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be using a custom layer to generate particles. So before we were generating from a box, but now we're actually gonna be generating from this tree layer right here. And we had to make sure that the mask was pre-comped, otherwise it wouldn't work correctly. So that's why we had to pre-comp the tree there. So let's go ahead and go to emitter, and we're gonna go to emitter type and change it. First thing we're gonna do, I sometimes forget to do this. We gotta turn on the 3D switch for the tree layer there. It doesn't work unless the layer's 3D that you wanna emit from. So I'll change it from, change the emitter type to layer. And now we need to go down to layer emitter here. And we need to choose our tree layer. So if I go ahead and play it now, you'll actually see that your particles are now being generated from this tree layer here. And so we are on our way right now. Okay, so let's see. Next thing we got to do, we got a lot of stuff to do this. I want the leaves to be shooting off, but then slowing down, similar to how our firework acted. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to the physics, and I'm gonna go to the air, and I'm gonna turn the air resistance on to like 2 or something. So now the particles should be shooting out and staying, which they are, but they're also disappearing because we need to make their the life of the particle longer. So let's go down and do that. Let's just create it to like 15 seconds to make sure that they're going to be staying for the duration of the of our composition here. Okay, so this is looking pretty cool, but they're coming on not frequently enough. And you'll notice that with custom layers, you have to use way higher particle per second values than you would have to if you were generating from a like a point or a box. And this is one of the drawbacks, and one of the things that you're really gonna have to be careful with when you're using a custom layer is that your renders can get like out of control really quickly here. Let's go ahead and put in like 2000 there. There we go, now our leaves are coming on. And I want them to stop coming on maybe at about 2 seconds. So I'll set a keyframe and have that stop there. And now I don't want these to be gray. Right now under layer emitter, the layer RGB usage is set to RGB, which means it's going to be taking the color of the layer that it's shooting from or emitting from, which sometimes can be cool, but in this case we want to be choosing the color ourselves because we want these leaves to be green. So we'll put it to none, and we'll come down and set the color to just like a green color, I guess. That would make sense for leaves, I guess. Okay, so you're probably thinking like, why are there leaves coming from the trunk of the tree right now? And You know, that's a really good question, and so let's address that right now. Yeah, since this is shooting from a custom layer, it's gonna be using the entire alpha of whatever that custom layer is to emit particles from. And the way we can get around that is we can actually find our tree layer in our composition here, and we can actually duplicate that. Hit Command D, and I'm gonna call this limbs, because this layer is just gonna be limbs. So I'm gonna duplicate this tree layer in our composition. Command D. Grab our limbs layer with this tree layer selected and hold Alt, and we're going to drop it right on top of this layer, and what it's going to do is it's just going to replace it. So now we have a separate layer here. So now if we go into this composition, we can actually draw another mask here, and we just want to mask out our tree limbs here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a subtraction matte, and I'm going to draw it around the trunk of the tree here. And I'm gonna hit M, and we're gonna set this to subtract. So now this layer is only the limbs. It's only the top of the tree here. So if I go back to tree growth, now we need to set this leaves layer, the emitter, we need to change that from the tree layer to our limbs layer. And once we do that, boom. The leaves are now only emitting from this limbs layer here, and we can actually turn this off because we don't need to see this. This layer is only being used as the emitter for our particular layer. So if I do a render now you can see that those leaves are where they should be. Alright, so no doubt you are thinking those green spheres are not very convincing looking as leaves, and I agree. So this brings us to our next little topic, and we're going to be talking about custom particles now, and using custom layers as particles, because we used a custom layer as an emitter, but we can also use a custom layer as a particle. So let's go to New Composition and make it like 100 by 100, and I'm going to call this leaf. And click OK. Go to and make a new solid. I'll just make this that greenish color we were using before. And now I just need to draw a mask that kind of looks like a leaf. There we go. The world's greatest leaf. Let's go back into our tree, our main comp here. And I need to drag that leaf composition that I just made into our composition. I tend to drop it at the top, but it doesn't really matter the placement because we're going to be turning it off. So drag that layer in, turn it off, go back to our particular layer. And we need to go to particle now and change it from sphere to sprite. And so go ahead and select that. And now we need to set the texture here. So twirl down the texture and go to leaf. And there we go. Now we have our leaves there. They're all at the same rotation right now. They came in the way that they look in the comp right here. So we need to add some randomness to the rotation to make it feel natural like a leaf should. So if we go into particle rotation and then set the random rotation to, I'll just put it to 100. There we go. That looks pretty good. I think I need more leaves in here. This tree's looking a little too sparse. So I'm going to go to the very first keyframe on our timeline here, and I'll set it to like 10,000. So right about now is when you're going to notice that your computer is really starting to chug. And like I said, this is one of the dangers of using custom layers to emit, and as well as custom particles. When you use the combination of both, it can get a little scary here. I'll drop this down to maybe like 8,000. Oh man, this is starting to chug. So if I do a little bit of a RAM preview, we can see that our leaves are coming in, and yeah, that's looking decent right now. Actually, no, it's not. I'm lying. It's ugly. But this is just a demonstration. So the cool thing about the custom layer is that you can use any type of layer as long as it has an alpha to it. And as far as the custom particles, really you can use anything. So that's it's a pretty cool feature. I'm just gonna stop the render there. All right, our leaves are coming on, and you know, it looks all right. Whoa, that's a crazy screen right there. I don't think my laptop likes this custom layer and custom particle business here. Well, too bad. Okay, so let's try to add a little bit of dimension to these leaves right here, because right now they look a little bit flat. So let's go ahead and create a new light. Make it a point light. And oh man, this is starting to chug now. Welcome to my nightmare. It's all part of the fun of doing motion graphics work. Okay, so let's go and let's go down to the shading tab, and we'll turn that on. And there we go. Now the particles are brighter where they're near the light, but we can actually do something even better than that. We can turn on the shadow lit for main, for the main particle. We'll put that to on. And maybe go down to the shadow lit settings and maybe put it to like 9. And this is gonna make it so the particles are actually shadowing themselves. So like the ones in front will be casting shadows on the ones in back. And I think we'll leave it here for this demonstration. And I actually want to go back to this snow composition here that we had before. I like the movement of the snow, but it's pretty apparent when looking at this that the snowflakes are not actual, you know, it looks like the snowflakes are just balls, falling balls right now. It doesn't actually look like snow. So what I did was, let's see, I found just this picture of ice. And what I was able to do was I was able to take a little bit of these chunks and actually turn them into snowflakes. So this is how I do that. I'm just going to drag this into After Effects. Going to drag it into its own composition here. And I think I found this just on cgtextures.com, which if you've seen any of my tutorials, you know that I love them. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to set it to a Luma matte. So the bottom one's a Luma matte of the top one here. And so if I turn on the transparency, you can actually see that we can see through this now. That's what the Luma matte did. I went ahead and I pre-composed these things. And then basically what I did was I just went in and I drew a mask around a few of these little snowball particle things here. Duplicated that, deleted that mask. Went over, found like another thing that looked like it could be a nice little snowball. I also put a little bit of a mask on these things just so there was no like rough edges on these things. And then I took these into a composition, and let's see here, where is that? Here we go. So I took them into this composition and I centered them up, and I put them in a composition that was 100 by 100, and I actually rendered them out. So these layers are not the gigantic layer that we were working with before, because if you're doing these custom particles, you really want these things to be as compact and as small as possible. If we tried to do like individual snowflakes using that giant layer, your computer would probably explode. So I took them and made them their own layers, and you'll notice that they're sequenced here. I actually sequenced them out so that they're all 1 frame long. I just shortened them up and put them in a row, and I made sure to that my timeline was cropped to the very end there. So once I had these particles all set up, they're shrunk down, cropped, and sequenced here. I'm actually going to take that layer now into this elemental layer that we had here with our snow in it. And so what I can do right now is I can actually use that layer as a custom particle, and this is where Particular starts to get really powerful and awesome. So I'm going to set it to sprite, and I'm going to set the texture to that ice layer that I created there. Let's see here, and I don't want to do current time. what I want to do is I want it to randomly do a still frame. So what this is going to do is it's going to pick a random frame from those 5 frames that I had in that composition, and it's going to use those for the snowflakes. They kind of disappeared right now, and I think that, oh yeah, there we go. It's because the size was set too small. So let's go ahead. How big should these be? Yeah, maybe 20 is fine. Now we're actually getting like organic looking snowflakes here, and I actually don't like the shading on this right now because it's making these giant dark blobs there, and I don't like how that looks, so I think I'll turn off the shading on this one. Let's make these a little bit smaller. So it's a subtle difference between what it was before and this right here, but it looks a lot more convincing. It looks a lot more natural, and this is the power of using those little sprites instead of just the stock particles that Particular comes with. The other thing is, like, if I get close to a snowflake in this, like if I move a camera through this, it's going to look a lot more convincing when those snowflakes get near the camera, because if the snowflakes before got near the camera, it would be really apparent that they were just fuzzy spheres. All right, to the next section. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to use a light as an emitter. Just the default After Effects lights, we can actually hook up like the emitter to that. So let's go ahead and do that. Just create another solid. I don't care about the color. Put Particular on it. Got our particle layer there. I'm going to go ahead and create a new light. And the way this works with Particular is you have to name the light emitter. So I'm going to write emitter for the light. And let's go ahead and change the emitter type to lights. And the reason I had to call that light emitter was that Particular won't recognize it unless it's called this in your layer there. So now when I grab my light and move it around, all of the particles will actually follow around with the light here. And this is where Particular gets pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just set some keyframes for this light. Maybe I'll have it start over here. Maybe I'll have it take 2 seconds. Maybe 1 second. Set another keyframe, and I'll drag it over to the right over here. And maybe in between here, I'll have it do a little swirly thing. There we go. I'll go ahead and change these keyframes. Right click on the keyframes, and I'm going to set them to Bezier, so that we get a little bit of a curve. Maybe I'll change my curve a little bit, make it a little bit nicer. There we go, that looks fine. So now, if I go ahead and render this, our light is coming through the scene here, and it's leaving particles, or it's emitting particles from this light as it goes, which is pretty cool. I'll select those keyframes and hit Rove across time there. And there we go. It's looking pretty good here. Now you can combine these principles of I can use a light emitter, and I could also just for the purposes of demonstrating, I can use that little snow layer that I used before. I could like set the particles as that. Set that to sprite, set that to the snow layer, set that to random still frame, and increase the size. Maybe size randomness to 50 or something. Oh, it's still emitting particles once it gets over to the end over there. So I'll have the particles die out once it gets to the end there, to the end of the light's movement. Maybe I'll have more particles. Maybe I'll set it to like 700 or something. So it just looks really crazy. This kind of looks like skywriting or some sort of smoky, who knows what. But it looks pretty cool. And this is just, I mean, we're using the default velocity and the default everything, and it still looks all right. We can go ahead and do things like, ooh, this is a cool feature right here, velocity from motion. It's set to 20 right now, and if I set it to 0, basically it's not going to be using the velocity of the light at all for the motion of the particles if you set it to 0. But if I set this to something like 50, you'll actually notice that the particles, oh, see right here, like the particles are actually, that's set too high. The particles are actually getting some of their movement from the light, so the particles are actually kind of reacting to the movement of the light there, which is pretty cool. I think these things need a little bit of rotation to them, so maybe I'll go into the rotation speed and put it to like 0.3 or something. I don't know how big of a difference that will make, but you never know till you try. Yeah, I can see a little bit of that rotation in there now. I think the velocity from the motion is a little bit high. Let's set that down to like 25. If we create a light in the scene, we can use our shading options again, which the more particles you have, the more the shading really can make it look nice. So if I turn it to on, and if I set shadowlit for main to on, okay, now we got to figure out what's going on here. Here we go. So I had to take the new light that I created and kind of drag it into my composition here. And let's see here, what is going on? Kind of sometimes Particular is like a puzzle of figuring out these shading options here and why it looks as crazy as it does. Maybe if I do the nominal distance, that might have an effect. Let me try turning the shadowlet off. Let me try it back on. I think it's the shadowlet settings that are making it crazy. Let's see if I adjust the distance. What does this do? Take the opacity of it down. All right, this is getting a little bit closer to something that looks normal. There we go. So we managed to create a little bit more depth in these things. It looks like some of this stuff is lit differently than the other stuff. We can even do things like if this were really smoke tends to spread out after it's emitted. So we can do something like that too. We can have our size over our life grow. So if we click on that one and then we click on flip there, we'll actually get it to reverse. Let's see here, but it's starting out way too small. You know, maybe I'll just draw this on myself. There we go. Maybe I'll go to the opacity over life and adjust that. Draw it. Oh, whoops. Draw it in on the front there so that it starts at full opacity. Let me increase the size a little bit here. They're starting a little bit too small. So this way, it's kind of acting a little bit more like smoke here. And you know, if I actually wanted this to look like smoke, I would probably create a different type of custom particle. But this is just for demonstration, so I think it makes the point. So now the particles are starting small and then they get kind of big as they come into the scene. And here's something else to keep in mind about Particular. You can duplicate another light into the scene, and you can have it. I'm sorry, I didn't want to duplicate the light. I want to duplicate the emitter. So if I have a different emitter here, and if I just like change a little bit of the placement here and stuff, now I can have multiple sort of emitters going on at the same time, which is pretty cool. And it's going to use the identical particle settings for both of those lights. And this is sometimes cool, but this is also sometimes you have to keep this in mind, that if you are going to be having two emitters, that they're going to be using the same particular layer there. So just something to keep in mind. And I think we'll leave it at this. So if you're interested in downloading Particular, you can do so from redgiantsoftware.com. You can buy it here. And also I wanted to let you know that there's a site on Red Giant's website called Red Giant People, and there they just have a ton of presets and stuff. A lot of them, I think most of them are free, that you can download and play around with, and I've used them before, some of these presets, and they're pretty awesome. So that's it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you got to learn some of the mysterious ways of Trapcode Particular, and seriously, it's my favorite plugin of all time. So anyways, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.